at again here with our guy, the main man, Mr. 84, legendary wide receiver, Herman Moore. What is going on, Herman?
Hey, Mike, I am extremely excited about everything I am seeing with the Detroit Lions this offseason. I thought I was excited about what they did in the latter part of last year, but just watching all the moves that are being made, every day I wake up wondering what is going to be new. And here we are, man, today to talk about a few of those things. So I'm doing well. Lions are doing extremely well, and the fans should be elated.
Definitely should be elated. Also, if you can do us a favor and elate us, both of us, by hitting that like button, that would be fan-freaking-tastic. It does help the channel out, and that's always a good thing. Also, subscribe to the channel. We just passed 7K. Let's get to 8K. Let's keep growing this bad boy to the biggest that can get out there. Let's just keep doing it. Lions last night signed former Lion. We're bringing the gang back together. Marvin Jones Jr. to a one-year, $3 million deal to replace DJ Chark. He was a great guy here in Detroit when he's with the Lions. What is your thoughts on Marvin Jones coming back?
I think it's a good move. If you look at them losing DJ Chark and then having to figure out how do they replace the uphill momentum and that they received with him near the latter part of the season as he started to catch on with Jared Goff. Bringing back a veteran like Marvin Jones Jr. only adds to the anxiety of maybe losing that big play kind of receiver on the outside or that bigger body. We know what Marvin Jones is capable of, given the fact that he's been here and he's had a stint in Detroit previously before leaving for Jacksonville. But coming back is just going to be like he never left, in my opinion. He won't have Stafford throwing the football, but he will have another dependable quarterback in Goff. And also he's coming back with a lot of tools in an offense that is poised to really have another breakout year, given everything that has happened and all the pieces that are falling in place. So I think he only adds to it. And in some cases, I think what you're trading for and with Chark into what you're getting with Marvin Jones Jr. is going to be even maybe a bigger lift than what you had, because that was a younger player. But right now they have a roster full of young wide receivers.
Yeah, and you think about Marvin Jones Jr., he's not just a great player. He's a great teammate, a leader, and a great man off the field. And I think that's a good fit to have for somebody next to Jameson Williams, a younger guy coming into the league. You get a veteran like Marvin Jones Jr. who can show him the ropes and how to be good still at age of 33, because Marvin Jones was putting up the same numbers last year as DJ Chark.
He was, having, I think it was 46 catches, 529 yards, 3 touchdowns. He had 11.5 yards a catch, and his longest was 37. Now, what that tells me is he's been consistent. Marvin Jones, when he was here, we've known him to, go down the field, make some big catches. But where I see him is he's going to create some matchup problems. He's going to be that guy, because I think Amon-Ra St. Brown is still going to be the one they're looking to double, which then keeps, Williams, and also you're going to look at Jones as having a little bit of that one-on-one coverage. So that this could be a really good offensive set and move for them. And so the old man isn't slowing down quite as much. He's going to be I think, having a really good production. And in fact, I think he may even do even better than what we saw in his 2022 stats.
We always talk about iron sharpening iron, and so the Lions offense is really good. But you know what they did in this offseason, this free agency? They really beefed up the secondary with CJ Gardner-Johnson, one of the best free agents out there. He comes to Detroit to help out this secondary. My favorite pickup in free agency. What is your thoughts on him coming to the Lions defense?
Well, I like the move with Gardner-Johnson. And I like the fact that you look at the rapport and the relationship he already had from New Orleans with Aaron Glenn. That goes a long way. He's also played with a team like Philadelphia, who is always, having winning ways as well. So he's not one of these journeymen that are just going to come out and he's looking to bounce from team to team, as much as he's going to bring some experience and he's going to bring some familiarity to your defensive coordinator that I think allows him to have a different type of communication channel and expectations going into knowing exactly what he's going to get out of that defensive back. So that's another good, solid move. I think there's a lot of strategy that's been put into the offseason moves by the Detroit Lions, which makes every move matter, meaning that they have really put some thought into how do we take a player that we bring in, regardless of what that person's position is in free agency or coming from another place. But they have a very specific role in terms of how they're planning on using that player to help out that particular unit.
What I love about Aaron Glenn's defense is he wants to have players that can fill all different roles, have different type of schemes up for each play. And CJ Gardner-Johnson, he can play safety and nickel as well. Familiar with the defense already, so Aaron Glenn's going to be cooking on some of these plays.
I think he will, and he will be able to dial up some other coverages that perhaps he didn't have in the past because he knows, again, what the strengths and the limitations are of his players. He's had an opportunity to really develop over the last couple of years, even the other players. So you're talking about a coach that really knows what he's working with. He understands the talent that he has developed. And when you understand where the weaknesses are, you're able to not put them in vulnerable positions. So I think Aaron Glenn's not going to have the up and down that we saw even last year, because I think he had some pieces that were moving around. But ultimately, when they started to settle in, the defense became very solid. Even though you see the moves they made in the secondary, they were necessary. And I definitely think there's an upgrade that has happened.
And then they turn around, Philadelphia Eagles, and get Cameron Sutton, the cornerback, from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Very solid outside cornerback. He's a hitter, a guy who gets turnovers. What is your thought of getting Cameron Sutton?
I think with Cameron Sutton, you're going to get a good defensive back that isn't afraid of run support and coming up and being able to take on some of those pulling linemen or taking on some of the backs right off the bat. And a sure tackler, person that comes up, you talked about being physical on the corner. It plays a big role, especially in the NFC North, but also with these bigger wide receivers. So with Sutton, I look for him to be another contributor to solidifying what we thought was probably the weakest unit for the Detroit Lions, and that was their secondary. But with the moves that have been made and the upgrades that we're seeing, there's a lot of opportunity for this defense, not only just to get better, but to have to have a lot of turnovers. We saw them starting to apply a little bit more pressure. And if you can solidify the secondary, it allows you to dial up more with your linebackers and your down linemen. That puts pressure on your opponent, but also creates confusion and getting them to make other line calls that could potentially lead to breakdowns.
When you look at Brad Holmes' free agency this year, very different in the last couple of years, aggressive, getting veterans in there. Is he making a statement, same with Dan Campbell, saying, we're not building anymore, we're competing, and we're going to go ahead and try to make a run here?
I think that was the plan all the way from their first hire. And when both came in, they knew that there was going to be a period of time in which they were going to be building. But as I said earlier, when Brad Holmes came in and also when Coach Campbell came in and his crew, is that they seem to have a plan. And we've seen other coaches that have come in and they didn't necessarily have a plan as much as they had the experience. Whereas this was a group that, unlike Dan Campbell being the one that was probably least experienced of some of the recent hires at coaching at the head coach position, but he came in with the understanding of what he wanted to do in terms of the mindset of the players. He knew what he wanted to do as it related to the physicalness of this team. And he also knew what he wanted in culture. And in doing so, he stayed very much true to that. And he hasn't swayed away from it and taking players, thinking that I can bring in this big name player that's all of a sudden going to come in and be the one that's going to be the difference maker. As much as he's built it internally, he's built it in a way which you can sustain it because he's bringing in the mentality, he's bringing in the communication. And then he also brought in coaches who would have that player-coach relationship that a lot of people try and avoid. A lot of the well-known coaches in the NFL, they shy away and they want to be more of that dictatorship, and they want to just rule everything versus understanding you got to have your position coaches, your offensive and defensive coordinators have to be able to communicate with the team. And if they can do that, which this team has proven it can do, it can turn the tide very quickly. Super excited about what they're doing. And it's a great time to be a part of this Detroit Lions franchise, not only as an alum, but also as a fan.
You know, what they did in free agency, we got the draft coming up. Is your expectations change for the better even after the initial free agency? Do you think that the Lions, they can get some double-digit wins here, win the NFC North, maybe win a playoff game? Has your expectations rise from what they've done?
My expectations actually have risen from what I was thinking coming into this season. Right now, I picked them as being the favorite to win the NFC North. I think that is definitely doable. I think the Lions should definitely have an opportunity to be in the playoffs. Whether or not they have a home game or not will determine how well they play during the year. But I do expect them to have postseason play. So the expectation has risen, and there's no way of bringing it back down. Right now, this is a team that is on fire. Going into the draft, people are going to be looking and say, you know what, any pick up in the draft is a bonus at this point, and it's going to be something that adds to the core of talent. If they had no draft picks right now, I don't think anyone would be sitting here thinking the Lions still wouldn't have an opportunity to win the North and or have an opportunity at postseason play. So think about that. I'm talking about the optimism absent what happens in the draft. So this should be a really good opportunity for this team to get even better down the road and for the future without the pressure that is placed on what that first round pick really needs to be, unless they decide to go after someone that they think needs to make an immediate impact.
So you're saying the Lions' expectations have risen. What do you tell the folks out there to get those like buttons to be risen?
Well, I think they need to give us expectation that our likes are going to continue to rise over time, because we want to also grow and rise as the Lions have risen over the last few years. So go ahead and hit that like button. Go ahead and please subscribe to anything that we put out there and continue to support our channel so that we can continue to bring them high quality content, but also the optimism stays very strong in this one.
Hey, with a former player and a fan's point and perspective, that's what it's all about, man.
Absolutely. And I appreciate it. Thanks again. This is a tremendous time, as I said before, to be a Lions fan and also an alum. And I look forward to having the rest of this offseason going into spring and then also into the summer, having high expectations. And also for the first time in a long time, looking at the preseason and saying, you know what, it actually is going to be worth watching. So those of you who have probably just going to be the biggest, I'm going to go ahead and put out there, we're going to probably see the biggest preseason crowds than we've seen in a long time, and also at training camp.
Hey, I 100% agree with you, but still, I'm probably not going to go a preseason game. With that said, adios.